is Vince Kelly reporting from the courthouse. In a heated attorney exchange this morning, Mr. Kratz referred to defense expert Dr. Hope as a hired gun and doctor of the evening. Today, Dr. Hope will testify about the new bullet evidence developed by the Zellner team. Let's listen in.
Objection, Your Honor. This Microtrace evidence is totally irrelevant. Overruled. Sit down, Mr. Kratz. I've already ruled that Dr. Hope may testify on this issue, and you're out of order.
Dr. Hope, you remain under oath from yesterday. You may now retake the witness stand. Doctor, would you please remind the jury of your dual expertise in the fields of medicine and the law?
Yes, I am trained both as a physician and an attorney, but I only practice medicine.
And do you also have a background in chemistry?
I do.
You are familiar with Ms. Zellner's new bullet evidence developed in the Stephen Avery case, correct?
Yes.
And you are also familiar with her trace expert, Dr. Chris Palenik, who performed this post-conviction bullet testing, correct?
Yes.
And you were aware that Dr. Palenik's analysis showed that the bullet did not pass through Ms. Halbach's skull, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is leading the witness, and the question misstates the evidence, and it is pure hearsay. I'll partially sustain the objection with the understanding that counsel lay a proper foundation first. The witness is allowed to rely on another expert's opinion in forming his own.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now try this. Dr. Hope, are you familiar with the company known as Microtrace?
Yes. Microtrace is a company founded by world-famous and renowned microscopist and forensic expert Dr. Skip Palenik. Dr. Palenik pioneered the science of microtrace evidence analysis by helping solve such cases as the Green River murders, the Atlanta child murders, and the Unabomber case. For example, the Green River killer escaped justice for 2 decades in the 1980s and 90s as he raped and murdered scores of runaways and prostitutes along the Green River in the Pacific Northwest. The crimes remained unsolved until Dr. Skip Palenik teamed up with others and analyzed microtrace evidence. Trace evidence might be a hair or clothing fiber. That's nothing new. But Dr. Skip Palenik took the science to another level when he used modern microscopes to analyze much smaller traces, those not visible to the naked eye. He used the scanning electron microscope to identify tiny particles of paint residue in the Green River killings. The real killer, Gary Ridgway, worked by day spray painting Kenworth trucks while picking up and murdering women at night. The tiny paint spheres on 3 of the victims were analyzed, and the precise chemical fingerprint was matched to the spray paint used by Gary Ridgway. On the basis of this and other evidence, the case was solved. Ridgway is now serving 48 life sentences.
And what did Dr. Palenik find in the Stephen Avery case?
Microtrace found that the bullet in the Stephen Avery case, also known as the magic bullet, did not contain the expected traces of calcium residue. Dr. Palenik concluded there was no evidence that the bullet passed through bone, which would contradict the prosecution's theory of the case that she was shot in the head. This qualifies as new evidence that can be used to grant Stephen Avery a new trial.
Cross-examination, Mr. Kratz? Oh, absolutely, Your Honor, absolutely. Dr. Hope, good morning. You testified that Dr. Skip Palenik is famous for helping solve the Green River killings, and if I heard you correctly, the Unabomber case.
Yes.
He is famous for getting murderers convicted through science, not for getting them acquitted through trickery, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. This is outrageous, improper, and prejudicial.
Sustained. Choose your words carefully, Mr. Kratz. Sorry, Your Honor. But Skip Palenik, the famous microscopist expert, did not really conduct these tests in the Stephen Avery case now, did he?
No, it was Dr. Chris Palenik, his son.
In fact, Dr. Chris Palenik was still in school while his dad was the one who really worked these famous cases, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Misleading and misstates the evidence.
Oh, overruled. You may answer, Doctor.
Both the senior and junior Paleniks are experts, and they both work for Microtrace, which is a world-famous company.
Your Honor, objection. That answer is non-responsive. Please direct the witness to answer my question with a yes or a no. Now, is it true when Dr. Skip Palenik was out working these famous cases, his son Chris was still in school? Yes or no?
Well, yes. The Unabomber was sentenced in 1998 when Chris was studying geology at the University of Chicago. The Green River Killer was sentenced in 2003 while Chris was finishing his PhD at the University of Michigan.
So, Chris was still in school while his dad was getting famous.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Kratz. You've made your point. Now, yes, Your Honor. Dr. Hope, Aside from whether Palenik Sr. or Palenik Jr. analyzed the bullet, the conclusion is based upon the absence of microscopic calcium residue on the bullet. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
And would you agree that if you need a microscope to see it, there can't be much of it?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that there was no more than a microscopic trace of calcium, if any, after it passed through Teresa Halbach's skull?
True.
So it wouldn't take much to wash off that microscopic trace now, would it?
Perhaps.
And are you aware of how many times that bullet was actually washed and manhandled after it was fired into Teresa Halbach's head?
Objection! This assumes facts that are not in evidence. There's no proof that Avery fired the bullet into Halbach's head.
Overruled. Was that bullet matched by ballistics to Avery's .22 rifle?
Well, yes.
And did that bullet have Teresa Halbach's DNA on it?
Yes.
And did Teresa Halbach's skull have a hole that roughly matched the size of the bullet?
Yes.
And was there lead residue found in the skull, characteristic of the type such a bullet would leave behind?
Yes.
And was there beveling of the skull wound, characteristic of the type a bullet entrance wound would leave?
Well, yes.
And what happened to the bullet when it was tested?
It was subjected to DNA testing, where it was washed in a testing solution.
But was it actually placed in a bag of liquid and shaken?
Yes.
Is it possible that testing removed any microtraces of calcium present?
Dr. Palenik tested 4 controlled bullets, also known as exemplars, by firing them into the bone, then placing them each in a bag of solution, subjected to shaking, and the calcium did not wash off.
Okay, Dr. Hope, let's talk. You're a scientist, correct?
Yes.
So, if we scientifically analyzed 100 control bullets by firing them into various thicknesses of bone and subjected them all to DNA testing and washing by sending them to the original lab in Wisconsin, how many out of that 100 would come back without calcium traces?
I can't say because Microtrace only tested 4 controlled bullets, and they didn't send them to the Wisconsin lab. They tested them with a technique they assumed to be similar.
They assumed.
Yes.
Okay, how about if we test fired 10 bullets in the bone and then washed them? How many out of the 10 would have no traces of calcium?
I don't know because, as I said, they only tested 4 control bullets.
And speaking as a scientist, is 4 controls a large enough sample size in this case to conduct a scientifically valid test?
Probably not.
Objection! Incomplete, hypothetical, and misstates the evidence.
Overruled. Was the bullet subjected to any other washing?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, Dr. Hope. What if the bullet were washed with bleach, gasoline, turpentine, like Brendan Dassey reported when they cleaned the garage floor?
Objection! Hearsay. Facts not in evidence. Highly prejudicial. Your Honor, this is misconduct. I want Mr. Kratz sanctioned. Mr. Kratz knows better than to mention a false confession, one that was never entered into evidence in this trial, and I might add, a coerced one.
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Kratz. And if you have so much mentioned Brendan Dassey or the confession again, I will hold you in contempt of court. Is that clear? And I will not hesitate to issue sanctions. Don't test me, Mr. Kratz. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'll move on. Well, Dr. Hope, Barb Janda noticed fresh bleach on her son's jeans on Halloween night 2005, did she not?
Objection. Pure hearsay, Your Honor. If Mr. Kratz wishes to bring in Miss Janda and question her, that is one thing. But to spread false hearsay is quite another.
Sustained. Mr. Kratz, you are on very thin ice here and this close to spending the night in jail. Sorry, Your Honor. The question is withdrawn. Okay, Dr. Hope, you are familiar with forensic expert James Ertle's testimony in this case, correct?
Yes.
And Dr. Ertle testified that he found a 3x4 foot area in the garage that glowed with luminol. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
And Dr. Ertle testified that that glow could have been caused by cleaning chemicals like bleach, correct?
Yes.
So, Dr. Hope, hypothetically speaking, if the garage floor were cleaned with bleach with a bullet on the floor, could this have destroyed the microtrace of calcium on the bullet?
Objection, Your Honor. This is total speculation. Incomplete hypothetical. There is no evidence bleach was ever used.
Overruled. Mr. Ertle's testimony is fair game. You may answer, Dr. Hope.
Bleach is highly corrosive. It's also a strong base. It denatures DNA and it destroys bone. If the garage were cleaned with bleach, it could have destroyed the calcium microtraces on the bullet.
So this supposed new evidence, founded by Junior Palenik, does not mean the bullet did not pass through Miss Halbach's skull if the garage floor were cleaned by bleach. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Any redirect, counsel?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Hope, the fact is that Dr. Ertl could not say what caused the luminol to react, could he?
True.
In fact, many things could have caused it to react.
True.
Recross, Mr. Kratz? Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Hope, did Mr. Earl testify that something was smeared in that 3 by 4 foot area on the garage floor that caused the luminol to grow?
Yes, he did.
And did Mr. Earl testify that it was either diluted blood or cleaning chemicals? Yes or no, Doctor?
Objection! Misstates the evidence. Your Honor, this is certainly misconduct. I move for sanctions.
I'm going to overrule that objection, counsel. You opened the door to this line of questions when you advised that other things could cause the luminol to react. Opposing counsel is entitled to ask these questions, however prejudicial. Yes, Your Honor. So, if it were diluted blood, would that clean off the calcium traces?
Probably not. Blood is fairly inert.
But if it were proven to be diluted blood, we wouldn't be here today arguing about the possibility of planted evidence now, would we?
Objection!
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Kratz. Yes, Your Honor. So, if it were cleaning chemicals other than bleach, could that have washed out the calcium?
It's possible.
Objection! That's totally speculative.
Overruled. What is totally speculative is this. Taking a bullet that has been matched to Avery's gun, that has left its lead in the victim's skull, that has been washed in DNA test solution, handled by ballistics, and probably cleaned in bleach, gasoline, turpentine, and then trying to say a missing molecule or two of calcium means evidence was planted? That, sir, is totally speculative.
Objection, Your Honor. There he goes again, referring to data.
That's it, Mr. Kratz. You are officially sanctioned. $500. Pay the bailiff. Do you take credit cards?
Back to Vince Kelly. Fireworks at the courthouse. You heard it. Kratz fined for misconduct. For more information on the case, go to drlawyerbook.com.